Stranger Things isn't strange anymore. Okay, let me back up. Stranger Things is a Netflix show, maybe the defining Netflix show that debuted in 2016 to rave reviews from critics and audiences alike. It is a televisual phenomenon like few others in the streaming era. And over the course of 4 seasons and nearly a decade, the fanbase has only grown. But things have changed along the way. Showrunners have left, cast members have grown up, have in some cases become megastars in their own right, and, well, the show's different now, right? Kind of? You guys think so too? As I write this script, the first episodes of Stranger Things' 5th and final season are about a week away from releasing, and like everyone else on planet Earth, I've been rewatching the show. Alongside that rewatch, I also happened to be reading the late writer Mark Fisher's essay, The Weird and the Eerie. And in a thrilling instance of synchronicity, I realized that within Fisher's essay lay the words I needed to vocalize that sense of difference between this and this. I've been thinking about for years now. By considering the two modes of strangeness Fisher's essay concerns, the weird and the eerie, in relation to the show, then it's possible to chart a fairly clear shift in what this show is doing, how it feels to watch it, and the things it's able to evoke in the viewer. Or to put it more glibly, let's start with the obvious question. What are the weird and the eerie? The weird is that which does not belong. The weird should not exist, or at least it should not exist here. If the uncanny is the familiar within the strange, the weird is something which ordinarily lies beyond the familiar and which cannot be reconciled. What results is a sensation of wrongness. The weird cases Fisher analyzes range from H.P. Lovecraft to David Lynch, but we're on YouTube and I know my audience, so think about WandaVision, and those creepy reality gaffes the townsfolk made in early episodes. Or think BoJack Horseman, the scribble faces and non-places in Time's Arrow, the gradually flooding unreality of the view from halfway down. Think of the cave in Palm Springs, the everything in I Saw the TV Glow. The weird is notable for the way in which it opens up an egress between this world and others, Fisher writes. The weird experience is an experience on the edge of reality. It's the discovery that such an edge exists, and so, depending on your disposition, depending on what's past that edge, it might be scary, or it might be fascinating. Behind all of the manifestations of the eerie, the central enigma at its core is the problem of agency, writes Fisher. That is to say, if the questions raised by the weird are what and how, the questions raised by the eerie are who, where, why. Most cases of the eerie fall into one of two categories per Fisher: failure of absence, that is, something where there should be nothing, and failure of presence, nothing where there should be something. To continue with non-Stranger Things pop culture examples, we might think of Minecraft here. Hands up if you've ever felt creeped out by the ambient sound effects you get while mining alone in a game world where you're the only sentient being. This is a classic failure of absence. There's a reason they're called eerie noises by the game's subtitles. Incidentally, the same principle explains the effectiveness of the Herobrine creepypasta, something where there should be nothing. For an example of Fisher's other mode, failure of presence, consider the game's randomly generated dungeons and strongholds. Again, the player character is the only intelligent being in a game of Minecraft. Who built these? Why? Where are those people? They fail to be present, and that absence haunts these sites, renders them eerie. Together, these modes of strangeness have to do with a fascination for the outside, for that which lies beyond standard perception, cognition, experience. This is the strangeness that makes the hair on the back of your neck stand up. This is the strangeness that's fallen away from Stranger Things, because, to start with, it was there. It was everywhere. It was in Eleven's peculiar, unexplained, unexplainable extrasensory powers, the liminal spaces she enters as a result of their use. It was in the contrast between unremarkable Hawkins and the mysteries beneath the town's surface. Above all, it was in the creature, then creatures, that prowled the night. Stranger Things wasn't a story of man versus self, or man versus man, it was man versus nature, but a weird nature. Unfamiliar, unknown, unknowable, so wrong that our characters struggle for analogues, are forced to settle on imagined ones. Season 2 alters things, but keeps them, I think, just as strange. The threat becomes an intelligent one, the so-called Mind Flayer, but it's a weird intelligence. Totally alien, totally unfamiliar, totally wrong. Existing where it should not. Lacking form and physicality and individuality where those things should exist. Or more than anything, there's our introduction to these creatures' home dimension, somehow adjacent to our own. There is something brilliant about the Upside Down of the early years, not just the concept, but the way it's presented. Lurching, disorienting camera moves that suggest that the place is weird geometry, but also, yes, the concept, an inverted echo of our world, organic where ours is dead, inhospitable air choked through by floating clouds of God knows what. What a fantastic and well-communicated way of creating a zone that is beyond, that is outside of cause and effect, of standard physics, of Euclidean space even. If it is the eruption into this world of something from outside which is the marker of the weird, as Fisher claims, the Upside Down is quintessentially weird. If the problem of agency, the why, is the marker of the eerie, we have eeriness in spades. To begin with, at least. Speculations are intrinsic to the eerie, and once the questions and enigmas are resolved, the eerie immediately dissipates. The eerie concerns the unknown. When knowledge is achieved, the eerie disappears. Season 2, Episode 7, The Lost Sister, is one of those cases of collective fandom memory holing. We don't talk about Carly, but I think we should. The episode is set almost entirely in a nocturnal, dilapidated Chicago, following Eleven's time with a band of vigilante outcasts. This episode exists in abandoned spaces, literally and figuratively, channels, dials up those mid-80s fears, presents to the viewer the anarchic breakdown of metropolitan life, a new world, an outside existing within the interior. It is a thoroughly and effectively weird episode, and for once a different kind of weird. More than this though, it provides a very telling contrast, at least in retrospect. Callie, this episode's titular lost sister, was the first glimpse we saw of Brenner's Project Indigo besides Eleven, and her abilities are markedly different. She creates illusions in a variety of ways. We never see her use Eleven's powers of telekinesis or remote viewing, and we never see that Eleven is able to use hers. This, the revelation that even the extrasensory powers possessed by these kids vary in mysterious ways, expands our unknown, our outside, makes both sets of powers and both children stranger. What other numbers, what other powers are out there, we wonder? 2 seasons later, we're introduced to the rest of the kids in Project Indigo, along with one, their prototype. But now, they all seem to more or less share the same power set. That earlier wondering now seems naive. The unknown shrinks. The outside shrinks. And we should talk about Vecna/Henry/One. By the end of Season 4, Vecna is revealed to be, for want of a better term, the king of the Upside Down, the creator or at least master of the Mind Flayer, the commander of the realm's creatures and hive mind. The show is no longer man versus nature, weird or otherwise. It is, at heart, man versus man. Those eerie questions of agency an antagonist like the Mind Flayer conjures up are replaced by well-worn, prosaic, human motivations of ego, revenge, megalomania. Through Vecna, the show's outside, the show's strange, is made familiar, is anthropomorphized. Literally. We'll return to Vecna, but to be clear, it's not just him. This shift is prefigured, I think, in the show's transitional third season, with the possessed, flayed Billy becoming a kind of pseudo-Vecna through which the alien is made human, made knowable. And it's not just a question of plot, the explicit resolving of the narrative's questions and enigmas either. It's also a matter of presentation. I'm thinking of the way those lurching upside-down camera moves become rarer and rarer, the way the upside-down of later years feels less polluted, less inhospitable, more legible. I'm thinking of what we might call the spatial concretion of this other world and its entrances as the show goes on, the way 11's initial gate becomes a sort of fixed master doorway over the years, exploited by the Demogorgon, the Mind Flayer, and even the USSR, the way the gates in Season 4 stay put, where those horrible, organic, impromptu doorways in Season 1 slip in and out of phase, and the way this concretion makes the Upside Down feel more and more like an annex to our reality than an inverse or an in-between. The physical otherness of that initial Upside Down is domesticated alongside the earlier wildness, the beyondness of the life within it. We could look to further examples, the way ballooning budgets allowed the show to render more and more of its mystical machinery in camera and perform a sort of reverse Jaws, for instance, but I think the picture has become clear. Stranger Things isn't strange anymore. And, because there is an and, that might just matter. We might just be losing something, some heft, some power beyond the aesthetic, beyond the level of vibes. I read you an incomplete quote earlier. Fisher does write that the weird should not exist, or at least should not exist here, but he continues, yet if the entity or object is here, then the categories we have up until now used to make sense of the world cannot be valid. The weird thing is not wrong after all, it is our conceptions that must be inadequate. The stakes here are not merely aesthetic. The weird, more than anything, is a signal that the concepts and frameworks which we have previously employed are now obsolete. It's not just the weird. To Fisher, the eerie possesses a similar destabilizing charge. When we become distressed, become haunted by our inability to decipher a Minecraft dungeon or a frozen echo of small-town America, or even real-life eerie sites like Stonehenge or the Easter Island Moai, we're coming face-to-face with the disturbing fact that everything in our own lives would appear that random, that meaningless when stripped of context, an experience Fisher calls witnessing the unintelligibility and inscrutability of the real. Since the eerie turns crucially on the problem of agency, he continues, it is about the forces that govern our lives and the world. A force like capital does not exist in any substantial sense, yet it is capable of producing practically any effect. The weird and the eerie, then, sites of phantom agencies, of presence or lack that defy understanding, these are modes of strangeness that threaten authority structures, ideological certainties, the very structures of explanation that had previously made sense of the world. Let's return to the consequences of the Vecna reveal. Before the reframing of Season 4, Brenner and his team, representatives of secular modernity, the state, the US, the Cold War status quo, seem open to the possibility of an outside, but only an outside that can be exploited and commanded. No, what's being sought through Project Indigo isn't really an outside at all. It is effectively an extension of the interior. The result of that quest is, to quote a description Fisher gives of the Lovecraftian weird tale, a catastrophic integration of the outside into an interior that is retrospectively revealed to be a delusive envelope, a sham. Those structures, those certainties fall apart. Parents don't know best. Hawkins' Middle America society sleepwalks toward chaos. Government and state are overpowered, woefully outmatched by the spirits inside this Pandora's box. This is not to claim Stranger Things was ever a politically radical show, obviously it was not. It's merely to observe that with its initial strangeness, there came an openness, and perhaps a skepticism. In the world of the first 2 seasons, the CIA stand-ins within and beyond Hawkins' lab, the vanguard of Reaganite America, are hubristic fools, made naive by their assumption of a solved universe, an end of history, made to look weak and stupid by the alien reckoning that follows, saved only by a band of misfit adults and children, all existing in one way or another on the fringes of proper grown-up society, led by Eleven, at this point an ET-type ambassador of the outside. But Vecna changes all of this, too. In the world of that 4th season, Brenner and that Vanguard are no longer ludicrously, pathetically wrong, made a sham by a revelatory outside. They were right. 2 right. 11, the other Indigo kids, all their now identical extrasensory powers are the successful results of a program to duplicate one's abilities, which, if you go by the stage plays lore, themselves ultimately resulted from covert US experiments decades earlier. As such, these extrasensory powers are no longer something where there should be nothing, they're reproducible, predictable, rational. And that reckoning, the catastrophic integration we watched play out in Season 1, wasn't that catastrophic after all, since Brenner survived all along, nor was it alien. Vecna, a human victim/product of secular modernity, is now the prime mover here. Always was, apparently. The Mind Flayer, with its hive mind and its color from out of space blight, is retrospectively adjusted from non-human to subhuman. Questions and enigmas are resolved. Yes, the eerie dissipates, yes, the weird is normalized, but the result of that is that our prior conceptions of the world are revealed to have been perfectly adequate all along. It should be clarified that the shift I'm describing is not a total one. Pockets of strangeness persist throughout the show. The Upside Down's frozen time, as discovered in Season 4, is undeniably weird, as are the incongruous dreamscapes 11 follows Max's mind through in the finale. Max's coma is quintessentially eerie, combining a failure of absence, she is alive when she shouldn't be, and a failure of presence, her mind and perhaps her soul appear lost. Weird and eerie artifacts are strewn throughout latter-day Stranger Things, but more so than ever before, there are asterisks, limitations. The team realizing that Upside Down It's Always 1983 would make for a far more effective, far more weird beat without the moment that follows. Nancy finding her diary and seeing the freeze coincides with Will's disappearance and that first gate's opening. The reality bleed in Max's dreams are dreams. And how many episodes do you really think Season 5 will be able to resist explaining away the eeriness of Max's coma for? So while what we're observing is not a total shift, it is a shift in emphasis. It's the show moving from a primary emphasis on the categories of strangeness we've discussed to the use of them for additional flavor. While more recent episodes do still give you goosebumps, they don't tend to be goosebumps of eerie discomfort so much as goosebumps of thrill. We might understand it as Stranger Things moving from weird horror to epic horror, or fantasy horror, a story taking place not between our world and an outside, but in a different world altogether, one with set rules and boundaries, like a game of Dungeons and Dragons. And that's a sideways move more than it is a fall off. Because Stranger Things isn't strange anymore and Stranger Things isn't good anymore are 2 very different sentences, and to be clear, I am not saying the latter. I enjoyed Season 4 a great deal, and am certainly looking forward to the show's last episodes, even if they're more aliens than alien, more thrilling and less strange. But if remembering or revisiting early Stranger Things evokes in you a sense of something more, a liminal, destabilizing feeling, an openness, the presence of an outside, if you feel that en route to becoming a global, #1 granting, Metallica blasting phenomenon, something was lost, perhaps it was. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please consider signing up on Patreon or YouTube to support my channel and help me keep making stuff like this. Only 20 more of you need to do so before the end of the year for us to reach the first stretch goal and for me to try my hand at a little live streaming in the new year. Huge thank you as always to everyone helping me out already, especially Hanan, Daniel Goldhorn, Deathstroke HQ, Harry Price, Kwang Yu Liu, Nothings, Snow Era, Something Something Capitalism Bad, Stephen Van Doren, Thomas R, and Weirdy Beardy.